Entergy is proud to support programming on LPB and greener practices that preserve Louisiana.
The goal of our environmental and sustainability initiatives really is to ensure that our kids and future generations can be left with a cleaner planet.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
Grand Isle's just, I pray it comes back.
The pain of a paradise lost.
The death is so much. I don't know how much more we can take.
Louisiana's healthcare workers pushed to the breaking point.
We got to start now for them.
Essential upgrades to fight storms of the future.
If you're sitting home and you're not doing nothing, you need to figure out how you can volunteer to help.
And Andre speaks with General Honoré.
Hi everyone, I'm Kara St. Cyr. Tonight, much of our state lies in ruin. Category 4 Hurricane Ida made landfall Sunday near Port Fourchon and Grand Isle, then tore a path of destruction through the heart of Louisiana's bayou country. Ida's unforgiving winds and savage storm surge leaving many without homes, water, or food. It's gotten us national attention, though. Joe Biden visited the state to survey the damage. He got a good look at Laplace, Lafitte, and Grand Isle, among other places. Ida's winds of 150 miles an hour match those of Hurricane Laura a year ago, and both now rank as the worst storms to hit Louisiana since 1856. Almost everyone in Ida's path has taken a hit, including many of us here at LPB. I'm anchoring solo tonight because problems from the storm kept Andre Morrow from making it back here.
Kira, as we have seen in the wake of Hurricane Ida, the state and those impacted have had to really ad-lib their lives and really just kind of figure out moment to moment where they were going to be. This storm has touched so many things, including the New Orleans airport. No real damage to the airport, but hard hit because no air conditioning, power limited and on generator, no water. That meant all the facilities could not be used. It also kept flights from coming in, and that's why I'm coming to you doing this by Zoom, because I've been unable to get back into Louisiana on a flight to New Orleans. So we're ad-libbing. It's a little bit different, but we're still bringing you the coverage of Louisiana, the state we're in, SWI. And we're doing it the best we can, so bear with us, but there's a lot of information that we have for you.
The road to recovery is just beginning. Many people are still in the dark without electricity. But Entergy does have an idea of how long it'll take to get the power up and running in some parts of the state. They put out this estimate of when New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and other places could see the power come back. Now, these dates can still change. It's just a guesstimate, but it looks like everything could be back on early next week. Now to other news making headlines across the state.
A Slidell man survived Ida and the rising floodwaters, but was tragically no match for a large alligator. His wife watched as the gator attacked him and ripped off his arm. She managed to pull him out of the waters and went to get help, but when she returned, her husband was gone. He is presumed dead. Grand Isle was hardest hit by Ida, but Houma, just slightly inland, also took a major beating. Little was spared. Damage is everywhere. Downtown Main Street looks like a canyon of rubble. Ida's eye wall tore through the city of 33,000 with winds up to 150 miles per hour. Hurricanes exposed the brutal reality between the haves and the have-nots, and Ida painted a horrifying reality for one Terrebonne Parish couple. With no home, no car, and no place to evacuate, Angelique Hebert and her husband rode out Ida, huddled under a bridge. They'd walked 15 miles to Houma to catch an evacuation bus, but they missed it. She says she knew they were going to die, but hung on, prayed, and rode the storm out to tell her story. Photos are showing what appears to be a miles-long oil slick in the Gulf of Mexico near Port Fourchon. They originate from an offshore rig. It's one of several spots throughout the region where port facilities and oil refineries are common. The multi-billion-dollar system of seawalls and levees helped shield part of New Orleans from the surge swept up by Ida's power. But wetlands provide natural barriers vital to blunt the impact of storms. Since Hurricane Katrina and Rita in 2005, restoration efforts have become a priority, and they must remain at the forefront in the state's efforts to deal with storms that will continue to come. Saints may not play a home game for a month. Tulane's home game with Oklahoma was moved to Norman and the OU campus, and LSU opens 2021 on the road against UCLA in the Rose Bowl. Despite the perils of hurricanes, college and pro football is here for another season.
Grand Isle was the first and hardest hit by Hurricane Ida, and a family story now that involves a camp that was demolished. This was the camp owned by my brother-in-law and sister, and it's one that the Morrow family and their family, the Lottingers, enjoyed for many, many, many years. It's uncertain what will become of it in terms of ever being rebuilt. But I talked to Tony Taylor, who was publisher of the Louisiana Sportsman newspaper and a member of our family. And here are some of his thoughts about the camp and what it meant to us. What was your first reaction when you saw the pictures from Grand Isle and from the camp?
Gosh, I saw the picture from Grand Isle the day I returned to see my house. Quite a double reaction there, I guess you'd say, because
Your house is in St. Charles Parish.
Correct. I'm in St. Charles Parish. I live in Luling. The eye wall passed probably about 5 or 10 miles from my house. My whole neighborhood is destroyed. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's what you do right now.
Yeah, but that's not so easy. And it's less easy when you've got that at home, but then you have this in Grand Isle. And describe for us what Grand Isle means to the Lottinger family, your wife, you and your wife headed up the Louisiana Sportsman for how many years? 30?
35.
35, okay.
Yeah.
Very, very successful publication. And it's became more than that. But Grand Isle was sort of a centerpiece of the whole organization and a meeting place for the family, right?
Well, I mean, my fondest memories are your father being there, teaching me how to fish.
Yeah.
And, it was not only a fishing place, it was just an incredible family outing for everybody at all times. And, you learned everything there. You learned how to fish, you learned how to cook, you learned how to clean. The earliest days, we had no air conditioning there.
Right.
And I'm sure you remember those days.
Yeah.
And 80% of the time that was fine. But when the wind quit blowing at night and the mosquitoes came through the little holes, it was quite a different night. And especially when you had babies there. We raised 4 children there. We spent the summer and longer all the time in Grand Isle. It was, it's just a wonderful place, and it was kind of the epicenter of, certainly for the sportsmen, but for a lot of people, and much like Eastern New Orleans and Cocodrie and Dulac and all those areas. It was just one of the, especially for the sportsmen, everything kind of emanated out of Grand Isle because we fished a lot there, and I used to tell people we were working, but. Yeah, we had a lot of opportunities to learn as much as we could learn and talk to fishermen and talk to guides and fish with different fishermen all the time. So we were always learning. That was our training ground for everything. Grand Isle was just, I pray it comes back. It suffered a lot of damage. Ours was an older camp. We were there for Ann's dad moved 2 humble camps there, probably 45 years ago when Ann was probably 10 years old. So that would probably been 50 years ago. Yeah. And 2 humble camps for $5,000 each, and a beachfront lot for $10,000. So they've been there a long time. And,
right. And it kept expanding until it became like a 3-story on one side and looked pretty.
Yeah.
It was no longer a camp, really. It was more of a beach house.
Yeah, we always called it a camp still.
We always did.
We
Always did. Yeah.
It's such a special place. The ironic thing is, maybe most people know or don't know, Ann passed away.
Your wife,
Yeah.
my niece. Yeah.
18 months, 18 months ago. And we were there August 6th, it's her birthday, and she'd been 59. And myself, all the kids and our grandkids, we had a chance to go there again.
And we're talking about just 2 weeks ago, right?
Correct. Well, whatever that time frame is, maybe 3 weeks ago, not really sure.
Yeah.
But a really special weekend. I'm so glad we had that weekend where we could all be together, and it was her birthday. We got to celebrate her birthday.
It seems surreal that that place is not there now. And
I think I counted 10 pilings.
yeah, I mean, not only not there, I mean, there are other places that were damaged. It's gone completely. So it's shocking that something that large could be suddenly not there.
Yeah, we were one of the older camps there, so we want the new regulations of 16 foot, and I think that was probably where we should have been, but we weren't, and we were right up next to the beach. The most wonderful view ever. There's a few helicopter flyovers that you can search on the internet that are quite telling about what Grand Isle's up against.
Right. Look, you be safe. Take care. Love you, and talk to you again soon. Okay.
Much love, brother. Take care.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll have more Hurricane Ida coverage, but first, when you think of trauma, you probably don't associate it with healthcare workers. But across the country, and particularly here in Louisiana, providers are drowning under the weight of COVID. And that was before Ida. Tonight, we bring you the first part of a special report on what happens when the people we count on to care for us need help themselves.
Baton Rouge General Hospital is in the heart of Louisiana's COVID outbreak. It's held the title of having the highest number of COVID cases in the country for months.
We're going into the COVID-19 ward at Baton Rouge General Hospital. They've actually had to expand the COVID ward, 6 different ICUs right now. And this is what it looks like.
With the Delta variant spreading fast, the staff here are at their breaking point.
The death is so much. I don't know how much more we can take of the death. Like, it's real. It's real. And we're reaching a point where I don't know if we're going to be okay to take care of you guys.
Dr. John Godke says the stress is really acute to nurses.
The nurses will spend 12 hours with 1 or 2 patients, and we run around all day and see a large number of patients and may spend a short period of time with them. And so they have a very high emotional investment in what's happening to these patients and their families. I'm not saying that we don't, but I see them as being more vulnerable when somebody dies that they've spent weeks with, and then they die. It's hard to see, and we've had a lot of nurse burnout. And the problem is there's a critical shortage of really experienced nurses. There are almost no nurses that have more than 5 or 6 years of experience in this environment, and they're so valuable.
Can you tell me what's going on the inside?
Just, the anxiety, the no sleeping, the constant worry, just depression from watching all this go down every single day for, almost 2 years, it seems. And yes, you're trying to process it, but your normal counselor, your normal medicine that maybe you take isn't enough to deal with the added stress and the added impact that COVID has on our lives.
What Danica's feeling is a textbook example of trauma. When most people hear that word, they usually think of war veterans or people with lethal injuries, but it actually hits healthcare workers just the same. It's extreme stress, and sometimes it can replay over and over again in a never-ending cycle.
We're going to keep coming to work every day, but the symptoms are starting to manifest in our staff as physical symptoms, like the anxiety is coming in other forms. Like it's going to get us one way or the other, you know. So I don't know how much longer we can do this. You know, eventually it will tire us out physically and mentally and emotionally.
Whenever you say it's manifesting itself in physical ways, what do you mean?
I mean, like, personally, my anxiety lately is manifesting as GERD-like symptoms, like heartburn or stomach ache. And every time my patient starts to decline, stomach ache, stomach ache, stomach ache.
As a doctor with experience, Gigi Dunn sees trauma in healthcare workers up close. She holds seminars at different hospitals to teach healthcare workers how to cope with trauma.
So we're designed, as you well know from medical school, to handle a single stressful event. We just walked through how you could do that beautifully.
After Hurricane Ida hit Louisiana's coast at a Cat 4, talk about healthcare workers and trauma is even more relevant, especially to Dr. Dunn, who planned to build a retreat center on her property.
So from the late 1970s. And so what is happening is, as we well know, our health professionals are already traumatized. They're experiencing trauma, they're experiencing moral injury as a result of COVID. When you put a natural disaster on top of something that has already stretched them to their limits, it is absolutely amazing the degree of trauma that it triggers. And also, we have to remember, many of the people in the healthcare profession lived through Katrina. They lived through the 2016 flooding. And so in addition to all of the issues that are being caused in healthcare right now, we've got environmental trauma on top of that.
In 2020, the American Hospital Association found that the physician suicide completion rate is 44% higher than the expected population. Dr. Dunn says that she sees the potential for suicides and PTSD in medical workers to escalate the longer we're in this pandemic, especially because healthcare workers may not even recognize their own trauma. But Dr. Dunn is giving healthcare workers like Danica hope where there was none.
I'm excited for someone to understand and help us be stronger, to be better, to cope with everything, to process it all. I'm just excited.
It's kind of like somebody is finally seeing you for the first time.
Yes. I cry all the time, but especially COVID has me crying on the regular, but I'm excited. I'm excited for what she has for us.
We've shown you the effects trauma and COVID are having on our healthcare workers, but the good news is there are solutions. And next week, we'll show you more about how Dr. Gigi Dunn is helping medical staff heal from their trauma. Still ahead, we'll hear from Senator Bill Cassidy and General Russel Honoré.
We're here with Senator Bill Cassidy, who has been on the ground in Louisiana touring the damage. And Bill, you've looked at a lot of areas. You've seen a lot. And in your lifetime, you've seen a lot of damage. How does Ida stack up to what you've seen before?
As bad in some certain areas, as bad as you've ever seen. Went down to Lafitte, for example, and the devastation is incredible. Places that have been 3 to 4 feet above water at one point were 8 feet below water. And you can imagine what it looks like. A crypt, of course, in Lafitte, they bury people above the ground. A crypt weighing 1,200 pounds, according to the mayor, had been washed across the road. Went last night to Livingston down to French Settlement, and transformers in standing water with trees across power lines. There were more homes hit by trees than homes not hit by trees, by a big margin.
It's interesting. You mentioned the power lines, and Baton Rouge, which was not largely hit, inexplicably is having some of the worst getting power back on, and that's hard to explain to most people.
Well, when I look at the map, Baton Rouge, I think, is over at least about 50% green now on the Entergy map. But when you go to Livingston, far less. And when you go to St. Tammany, about 88%, I think, is still without power, portions of it. You go down to the Bayou region, the Bayou, it's all red on the map.
Sure.
And if you look at JP, and if you look at Plaquemine, St. Bernard, and Orleans, so they're coming back. But let me tell you something, Andre.
Yeah, it's not fast.
When I was in French Settlement, they showed me a place that they had put the power line beneath the bayou, 40 feet beneath the bayou. And that power line, of course, was unaffected by the storm. Now, if it's out in the air, it's got a tree across it, beneath the bayou, unaffected. So we have this infrastructure bill we're pushing to harden the grid. That bayou and French settlement showed me what we should be doing with the Mississippi River. If they had put that power line in St. Charles Parish beneath the Mississippi River, St. Charles Parish, JP, and Orleans would have still had an influx of power, even if individual homes were not yet powered up.
You've been joined by the Louisiana delegation to make sure that the money gets to the people quickly enough for Ida, and it's imperative. It also brings up the point of Laura. Does Ida somehow help what happened with Laura and the fact that it's doing this horrible stuff, a lot of death in the Northeast?
Yeah, so the disaster relief, the supplemental disaster relief is on top of the money a community would receive from FEMA, individual assistance, Army Corps, et cetera. And that's to come in at the end to help those issues that have not been addressed by the dollars that are already pre-programmed to go out. I've received assurances that Hurricane Laura supplemental payments will be considered in an upcoming appropriations bill. Now, you trust but verify, but I've received those assurances. On Hurricane Ida, I'd like to think it won't be a year. And I say that because, again, the Northeast has been affected. It looks like it's going to be an active hurricane season. Mississippi was affected by Ida. Alabama was affected by Ida. So I'm hoping that there'll be a greater awareness of this and there won't be the same delay in receiving that supplemental disaster assistance.
I believe that what's happened here also goes to the point of the infrastructure bill, the need for it. Would you say so?
Absolutely. We need to start working now for future hurricanes to make the grid more resilient. By the way, Andre, there's also $65 billion to make sure that every American has access to high-speed internet. Why do I say that? Because now the way we get out warnings is through social media.
All right, Senator Cassidy, thank you so much. Look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, Andre.
General Honoré, once again, a disaster of epic proportions has hit Louisiana. What do you see your role as being in this?
Sort of the institutional memory of reminding folks what's really available if you ask for it. The federal government has a lot of assets, but you have to ask for it.
Okay.
It's a pull system, not a push system. Also to communicate with those who in Washington, congressional members and the White House, is to share with them how they can add some degree of speed to things in terms of getting assets to the affected area. FEMA, as all the good work they do, they're controlled by several committees in the Congress, and they approve the FEMA rules. Well, one of them is you cannot get disaster assistance if the only factor is your house is without power. That sounds good on paper, but it does not take into consideration when the entire grid is broken. Because power is related to the rest of the grid, the ability to get water, the ability to flush toilet, the pump station, the ability to use the internet. So we need some exceptions to the rules. What I found in Katrina, one of the first things you got to do is figure out what rules you're going to break, because the rules are not written for the disasters we face. We need to pre-register people. When we go to hurricane watch the warning, we need to tell people while they have, when you sitting at home and you have your internet, go ahead and register.
Okay. That sounds like a good
idea. The
idea.
way the system currently works, you got to wait till all of the electricity is gone. the internet is not working, and then they start telling you, hey, well, you need to register.
Yeah.
We need to change that.
General Honoré, I thank you so much for your time.
May I say this?
Yes, sir.
Good luck to our first responders.
Uh,
And if you're sitting home and you're not doing nothing, you need to figure out how you can volunteer to help, because volunteers save a lot of lives in a situation like this. So you got Red Cross, you got United Way, the religious organizations. Find out inside your circle how you can help, and let's move and help our people.
yes, sir. Thank you.
That's our show for this week. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime, wherever you are, with our LPB app. You can catch LPB news and public affairs shows, as well as any other Louisiana programs you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Andre Morrow and everyone at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Kara St. Cyr. Thanks for watching. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Entergy is proud to support programming on LPB and greener practices that preserve Louisiana.
The goal of our environmental and sustainability initiatives really is to ensure that our kids and future generations can be left with a cleaner planet.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.